Welcome to the Unpacking It live podcast presented by Medishare. I'm Bryce Johnson. For the next hour or so, we will unpack sports, faith, and life with the Unpacking It community of sports fans. Wow, what a weekend in sports. There is so much to react to. You know, we're NFL guys, and so yesterday was just an unbelievable day, and it sets up for what should be a fantastic couple of weeks where the NFL playoffs go from wild card weekend to the Super Bowl, and I can't wait for all of it. And then throw in tonight, we've got the college football national championship, Alabama, Georgia, the rematch. That's right. We get to see these two teams again. And today, during our Unpack This segment, we will discuss the rematch and how it relates to our own lives and how we actually face rematches on a daily basis. And so we face a similar opponent every single day. And so we will get into that in just a little bit. We will let you know what we're convinced of today. We will do tap drill today. We will discuss the head coaching changes going on in the NFL. I'm sure there will be news that will break over the next hour as well, I imagine. And then also what happened yesterday. I mean, my head is still spinning from the NFL action. And so let's say hello to Luke. And Luke, I'm going to jump into I'm convinced, and we'll get some instant reaction to the NFL weekend. But how are you doing, and how fired up are you for today's show?
Well, like you, I feel like yesterday wasn't even real watching these games.
It was.
I don't know how to feel. I was like,
Yeah,
was yesterday a dream? Was
I
it a
know.
nightmare?
Yeah.
I'm still processing. So today, I look forward to a lot of processing. This is like a sports counseling session. Like we're processing here together what happened yesterday.
So I think off the bat, I have to say this. I'm convinced that two changes to the NFL that maybe I was hesitant about at first were actually great ideas. One, the added wild card team,
Oh
which I
yeah.
guess started last year. And then two, the extra week, or replacing a preseason game with a regular season game and having 18 weeks of the NFL season.
Hmm.
Now, I didn't think we needed an extra week. But if yesterday is any indication of what we will see each year during Week 18, sign me up. I'm in.
Yes.
I'm there. I'm there for it, and let's go. Because from start to finish, I was real into the 1:00 games, and then I was able to watch the Sunday night game Monday morning. So I didn't know what happened. So I watched last night's crazy wild game this morning. But here's what I'm convinced of, and we'll break down the the whole Chargers loss. But from a bigger standpoint, I'm convinced the Chargers should be in the playoffs. The Colts should be in the playoffs. The Raiders have no business being in the playoffs. The Steelers have no business being in the playoffs. I'm convinced I can't wrap my mind around the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles are in the playoffs. And
Yeah.
here's what it comes down to. Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, last night's game, the throws he was making, the fourth down throws he was making, how clutch he is, incredible he is. For him to not be in the playoffs is a
Mhm.
shame. And I was listening and watching a bunch of stuff today, and that is the sentiment, and I echo that sentiment. We miss out on not having him. And the Indianapolis Colts, the team that I was on the bandwagon for all
Oh,
season long, they absolutely should be in the playoffs. All they had to do was beat the Raiders last week or the Jaguars this week. Listen, I love Carson Wentz. I love Frank Reich, but it was an unacceptable circumstance or outcome. This should never have happened. I mean, under any circumstance, you cannot lose
yeah.
to the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 18 when they're thinking about Cancun. They're ready. They're done. Their season's been over for, I don't know, 15 weeks.
It's been
It,
over before week 1.
it's been a disaster. So for the Jags to end the Colts season the way they did
Oh.
was just crazy. So that's what I'm convinced of today.
So that launches me into what I'm convinced of. And I'm convinced I know, after yesterday, I now know who Which fans this season have the most suffering? It's not Lions fans. You know what? The Manning curse officially lives on with Aaron Rodgers losing. Well, he didn't play this. He didn't play the second half.
Forgot about
But
that.
the Manning curse lives on. It's not Lions fans. It's not Jaguars fans who have endured the most suffering this season. It's not Texans fans. It is Indianapolis Colts fans. It is no doubt in my mind. They are the most sick to their stomach fans this season.
Yes.
You win, you beat the worst team in the league, you go to the playoffs. No doubt.
Yeah,
you bring in Carson Wentz. The Frank Reich connection. You have the best running back in the NFL.
Yeah, possible
Jonathan Taylor.
MVP.
You have to go beat the worst team in the league, and you lose somewhat convincingly.
Yes.
I mean, if you're a Colts fan, I tip my cap to you. I'm thinking of you today. You have the most suffering as an NFL fan this season, and you cannot convince me otherwise. That is terrible.
They had more Pro Bowlers, I think, than any other team, either as many as anybody. I mean, they were loaded with Pro Bowlers, and then to not make it, and to have Jonathan Taylor and not make the playoffs. And again, the Chargers, to have Herbert and not make the playoffs. And I would also say that Chargers fans have a tough time too.
True.
Because think about it. The difference with the Chargers is they still win a lot of games. Like they win 9, 10, even 11 games every year. Like with Phillip Rivers throughout his entire career, they were always competitive. They were in the playoffs, but they always find ways to lose. And now with a new coach, a new regime, a new quarterback, it's the same old, same old. So last night's game was really one of the best. Colin Cowherd said it was the best game of the year. I mean, it's been one of the most epic games. I was explaining to my 5-month-old who I was holding this morning that this is one of the greatest games. Like, this is unbelievable. I was trying to explain to her and to my wife who didn't care what was happening. I'm like, guys, this is unbelievable. So I'm glad to be with you today, Luke, to be able to talk about this, because Michaela was not responding to me. She couldn't quite grasp how this game, it could have ended in a tie with both teams that could have gone to the playoffs. We went into this game knowing that it was a possibility, how absurd that it was a possibility. And then you threw in the fact that the Colts lost and then the Steelers won. How did the Steelers win for one? Just the way that they even won, with Roethlisberger coming up with huge, I guess it was a 4th down play or 3rd down play at the end of that game. So I just throw my hands up. I don't even know what to say, but that game last night lived up to the hype, what we could have dreamed it to be. Yes. And then for the Raiders, with the season that they had, the turmoil, the disappointments, the really bad stuff with Gruden, the really bad stuff with Ruggs, yet they keep rolling. And Derek Carr, my boy, I don't like the Raiders, but my boy Derek Carr, awesome job. Man, incredible.
The other thing I'm convinced of is, if the Raiders coach is not named head coach, and if he ends up not being the guy they go with, I'm convinced that the Raiders have no idea what they're doing. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? He has earned the right.
But yes,
I'm just not sure there's anything else he could have done to earn the right to be named the head coach officially. Are we serious here? He has to be the guy. And it doesn't have to be.
Name? That's what I want to know.
Say that again.
No one knows the name of the head coach of the Raiders.
I can't even think of it right now.
I was watching. I think it was Colin Cowherd. He didn't say his name either. I don't know his name. I was looking it up. I was like, I still don't know how to pronounce it.
I will say though,
terrible.
It's one of the strong. He has one of the strongest goatees I've seen in years. There is not a hair out of place, and every time they pan to him on the sideline, I'm telling you, not a hair out of place on his goatee.
Oh,
it was unbelievable.
It's funny you say that. So last night I shaved, because I had probably a week-long beard. It was getting scruffy. It starts to itch and it's bad. Yeah. So I shaved just to see what a goatee would look like, because I used to have one when I was younger. It's still just as bad. So yeah, not everybody can pull that off. So you're giving the Raiders head coach, whatever his name happens to be, however you say his name, the guy's a legend. We better remember this name, because what he's done and what he did yesterday, where even after the press conference, I was listening to him. He's like, oh yeah, we would have been fine with the tie. We were thinking tie toward the end. And then the Chargers called the timeout. But I know a lot of people are criticizing, I think Henry's all fired up about it too, about the timeout.
We need to talk about that.
Okay, you go, but I'm not as adamant that it was such a mistake.
Yes.
Because I still think the Chargers, they were in a situation where they were trying to keep the game alive. They didn't know for sure that the Raiders would play for a tie. Like they were on defense, so they were trying to get their best defense out there, and they thought that a timeout would allow them to do that. That's why I began with the bigger issue, the fact that they're not in the playoffs. They should have won other games as well. They should have never been even in a situation where you're playing for a tie with your playoff hopes on the line when you have Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert as your two key stars.
True. So that's my other thing I'm convinced of. The slander that Staley called a timeout at the end of the game, that timeout did nothing to change anything. It had no influence. So I'm convinced that the timeout had no influence because, let me explain. Everyone's saying, oh, I can't believe he called a timeout that lost him the season. If you're going to get mad at Staley for anything, it's going for it on 4th down inside your own 20. That's the thing fair. You are upset with. But the timeout, the Raiders actually have something to play for. If they win, they play Cincinnati in the first round. If they tie, they go to Kansas City. Mm-hmm. So basically what the Raiders are doing is we're going to run the ball. We're not going to throw it. We're going to run the ball. If we get in good field goal position, we'll kick the field goal. If we don't, fine. We'll let the clock run out or we'll punt it. And the Chargers will for sure kneel it because if they win or tie, nothing changes who they play in the playoffs. So as a Chargers fan, the first and second down, no one's calling a timeout. Both teams look like it's going to a tie, and they keep showing Steelers fans in the crowd, which Steelers fans at that game, interesting in the first place. Poor guys, but they're terrified. So I totally buy what Staley said is he called a timeout because he wanted to get a better run defense out there. Yep. They subbed out their linebacker, put in an extra lineman, and they're thinking, hey, we want to prevent them from getting a good gain here so we can have them kick a long field goal. The Chargers were not calling a timeout to try to get the ball back and score. So regardless if they call a timeout or not, it was only a difference of 4 seconds on the play clock. The same thing happens regardless. Raiders run the ball. If Chargers call a timeout, they run the ball if they don't call a timeout. Now, the running play was changed, but regardless, the Raiders are running the ball. And so I don't think the timeout changed anything. What happened was the Chargers proved that they still can't stop the run, which has been a problem all year. And they gave up a 10-yard run, which led to a 47-yard field goal attempt. So I don't think the timeout did anything to change the outcome. That's my opinion. I just, the overreaction of the timeout lost them a chance at the playoffs. I think that's a huge overreaction.
Well, and also I want to focus on the fact that we went in knowing that the tie carried a lot of weight, meaning both teams could get in with a tie. And so I'm watching the game thinking, is it possible to script or orchestrate a tie? Like, could they pull this off without it being, obvious where they kneel every time and, all right, you kneel, we punt, kneel.
Yeah.
But the NFL is just too complicated. It's too difficult. So that could never happen. So it ended up just being this epic game where they both were competitive. They both had the playoffs on the line and they both showed up to play. And it went into overtime and then all the way down to the final seconds for a field goal to win it. So that's just a remarkable way. This ended the NFL season, the longest NFL season we've ever had with 18 weeks in the midst of the COVID shenanigans all year long. And that's how the season ended.
The fact that it almost happened, the fact that the tie almost happened with everything that happened in the fourth quarter. The Chargers had 25,000 fourth down conversions. The fact that the tie almost happened. Think of how rare ties are in the NFL.
Yes.
One or two a season, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
As a Steelers fan, I would have been throwing up. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Watching this game, Madeline, my wife, was reading Harry Potter, and I'm watching this game. I'm screaming at the TV. Like, what is going on? I'm telling her, Madeline, this is one of the craziest things I have ever witnessed in the history of watching sports. 1 second away from one of the craziest things to ever send teams to the playoffs. It was unbelievable.
So so I'm anti-ties, but a part of me is definitely disappointed that it didn't end in a tie.
Only time I've ever rooted for a tie.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the case. It's like deep down, I didn't really want a tie. I wanted somebody to win it, but it would have been just so fascinating. And then for Pittsburgh to not think that they were going to make it. Like one of our good buddies, Paul, who's a part of Unpacking It, he won our fantasy league, big Steelers fan. I've been talking to him throughout the year. There was no indication that this was a playoff team for the Steelers this year.
Tomlin was on the hot seat.
I mean, it's Big Ben's done. Like, is it time to, even move on from him midway through the season? And, can Mason Rudolph, maybe he can throw the ball more than 10 yards, or Haskins. It's like, wow, what other options do they have? And here they are. And we'll talk more about the matchups in a few minutes. But with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers in the playoffs, I won't be shocked if they make a run. I won't be. I'm shocked that they've made it to a certain extent just based on where we were at certain points during the season. We had written them off, given up on them. But we shouldn't do that with Mike Tomlin. I can't believe, I have to confess, I went against some of my guys that I love rooting for. Mike Tomlin, Derek Carr, two guys I've interviewed over the years. Love these guys, root for these guys. But I totally wrote off the Raiders, totally wrote off the Steelers, and here they are in the playoffs. Oh. So good for them. Good for them.
Unbelievable.
And also, sorry, I got so much to say. And then the other thing with the Chargers, so in general, I'm all for going for it on fourth down. Playing football like it's Madden. In real life, go for it on fourth down. And so the Chargers, like, they don't even care. They're like, we're going for it. Because earlier in the game, they actually kicked a field goal. They missed. They're like, all right, we're done with our kickers. We're moving on. We're not trusting him anymore. And so now they go for it. But I've rooted for the Chargers this year. I like Herbert. I like Eckler too. But they frustrated me with their decision making. I will say that a lot of those fourth downs, they were either not a great time to call fourth down, or they were a dumb play to run on fourth down, let alone whether it was executed or not. It's like, dude, why are you running that type of play on this fourth down play? So the Chargers
saved their fourth down magic for the fourth quarter. I still can't get over it. I was watching the game. They would convert another one. I'm like, Madeline, again, are you kidding me? Did this just happen again? And then they don't convert it, and then it's a defensive holding, and then it's first down. Right. Are you kidding? Right. The 4th and 21 touchdown to tie it. Or no, to not tie it, to get within one score. And then the touchdown to Mike Williams. I mean, I just can't even believe it. Unbelievable. Yep. So they made it turn into an epic game. So that was one of the most memorable moments of the season, and I really believe this sets us up for what should be a very competitive. There will be upsets in the playoffs, and so we'll talk about the matchups in just a little bit. Let me thank our presenting sponsor, Medishare. They're a wonderful partner here at Unpacking It. My wife and I, we've been Medishare members for over 5 years. Medishare is an innovative healthcare solution for Christians looking to save money without sacrificing on quality. They're the nation's largest healthcare sharing community. Medishare members take comfort in knowing their eligible medical expenses will be shared by their community. And so Medishare has provided us with an affordable and effective way to pay for healthcare, and encourage you to check out their options. And if they can save you money, just text the word unpack to the number 201-201. That's the number 201-201, and then just text the word unpack, and you'll get a link to be able to find out more information about Medishare. All right, so Luke's with us today. Henry's with us today. We'll do tap drill in just a little bit, but before we get into unpack this, Henry, what are you convinced of today? And how do you feel about Dave Gettleman, your GM of the New York Giants, retiring? Big news out of New York.
What's going on, boys? Well, let's get this out of the way first. I'm happy Dave Gettleman announced his retirement because the Giants really didn't want to fire him. So that they had to have some type of conversation. Say, you know what, we're going to fire. We're going to retire. You just say you're going to retire. We'll have the big pomp and circumstance how you were an asset to the organization for many years, and just usher him out the door, as opposed to saying, you know what, you're fired. That has such a negative connotation to it. And let's be real, his whole tenure with the Giants as as a GM was kind of negative, but he's out. We're going to give him his pomp and circumstance, give him his flowers. Thank you for being such a part of the organization, and we keep moving on. Now,
hey, Henry, let me stop you right there. What is pomp and circumstance? Do we know what this means? Pomp and circumstance. What is that exactly? I understand what you're referring to, but where does that word come from? And when do we really use that word?
I think we use the pomp and I think we use pomp. That's POMP and circumstance when it comes to like graduation and all of the ceremony and the coming down of the aisle. I think that's where that comes from.
I gotta plead ignorance here. I totally just smiled and nodded because I have no clue what that means. I've never heard that in my life. I heard that and I'm like, all right, Luke, just smile and nod. Yeah, pomp circumstance.
Tremendous. He dropped it twice. But I needed to make sure we clarified what we were talking about here.
When we talk about pomp and circumstance, we're talking about giving somebody their flowers while they're still living and just doing it up. And if you ever like a graduation, if you ever seen a kid's graduation, or at least you guys will see, when the kindergarten graduation comes down and the kids are in their little caps and gowns, and Shannon says it, yeah, a big parade when you make like a really big hoopla about somebody or about an event. That's what pomp and circumstance.
We definitely don't have time to get into this today, but kindergarten graduation. Oh, we'll save that for another show. It'll make you want to tune in again. Kindergarten graduation. We're talking about gowns. Come on, Henry. You're not the only one bringing that up. Maddie's only 2, so I got some years to hopefully that trend changes. But we'll see if the pomp and circumstance changes by the time she gets to kindergarten. So, all right, Henry.
What I'm convinced about. But what I'm convinced about is everything that we're talking about right now. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Ben supposedly is supposed to ride off into the sunset. We're talking about the Chargers and the Raiders. They're supposed to end in a tie, and then the Raiders wind up sending the Chargers home. We can't forget about the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo with a piece of a chunk of his hand not there, and he leading the 49ers into the playoffs. And I say all of that to say that the NFL or football, however you want to call it, is the biggest and most successful reality show going right now. Forget your MTV, forget your Real World, forget your 90 Days Before the Day. Give me the NFL. As a matter of fact, the USFL is coming back again, and they're going to do football in the spring, and I'm excited for that. We got college football on Saturday. We got NFL on Sunday. Give me the NFL. It is the biggest reality show going, and that train's not stopping anytime soon.
I love how Henry, your I'm convinced was an indirect shot at all TLC shows. Forget your 90-day fiance. Forget all that stuff. NFL is king.
Forget love after lockup and all that other stuff. Give me the NFL.
Yes, that's not debatable. That's for sure. Luke, actually, you sent me the top. What was it? The top 100 shows of 2021.
Well, the top 95? 10. The top 10. Well, yes, for sure. The top 10 telecasts of the year. 9 of them were NFL games. One was the presidential inauguration, and then like 95% of the top 100 are NFL games. It's unbelievable. Like it's like regular season games made the top 10. Of telecasts of every type of telecast possible in America. Crazy.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So, all right. Well, good stuff. And I'll add this too, and we'll do more with Henry in just a little bit. But he's got his eye on the chat. So if you're listening and watching, whether Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, leave your comments. Henry will see your comments. He'll respond. And so we appreciate the interaction during the show. As always, and some of the best comments will make it to the stream for people that watch it later on any of those platforms as well. All right, but this reality with the NFL too. You know, the parity that we enjoy so much, and I wrote about this on Friday. Just how quickly teams can turn things around. You know, Cincinnati Bengals last year 4 wins. This year they win their division and make the playoffs. And so the closeness of games really matters in the NFL, because I was listening to something like if the Panthers actually won the games that they were close this year, which it's surprising to even think that how bad the season ended. But they'd be like 9-7 because they were in all these close games that they blew it at the end. And so that's how the Eagles got into the playoffs. They won those close games. And so same with the Raiders. That's how the Raiders got in. And so it's all about these close games. It's all about how, 1 year can be different than the year before if you finish it out, if you close it out. Because I won't be surprised if next year the Chargers win 12, 13 games. They're that good, but you got to win the close ones. But it makes it fun, and there's a lot of optimism, I think, going into next season. And that's what makes it, a little crazy today that we heard the news in Miami, where they're one of those teams that, next year you'd think, gosh, some of those tight games they'd win, but instead they fired Brian Flores, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, which was a wild one. So, all right, let's unpack this. And tonight, of course, the college football championship. And I read an article right before the show about how they need to move the college football championship to another night of the week. Just asking the question, like, why is it on a Monday night? And I think they make a great case. Like, they should have done it last Friday night. Absolutely. Because then we weren't thinking NFL yet. Let college football take center stage. But the reality is today, like, we're excited. I mean, I'll be ready to roll at 8:00 to watch this game as long as I can get the girls down to bed, my daughters. But, I'll be all fired up. They got the mega cast and all that. They need to have the Manning brothers, which they don't, which is
that would be something.
Now we're talking. But think about it. Today we're all fired up about the playoffs. We got the NFL, the schedule comes out. We got all the coaches getting fired today, which is dramatic and interesting. And then, so college football, I don't think it gets as much of the momentum and discussion as maybe they could get if it was a different timing. And especially I think the week 18 changes it too. If I'm not mistaken, that this feels a little bit different even today, just based on the timing of it all. So, anyway, that's a side note. Today's topic, though, is all about the rematch tonight. Okay, so Alabama, Georgia. Remember back in 2017, what an amazing national championship game that was. That was Tua's big game coming in the second half.
Yeah,
becoming the star. It was a shocking, comeback and dramatic, final touchdown for the win. And then also this year, Georgia really was the team all year long. Like, they were the team to beat, but we always know Alabama's right there, right? Alabama's always in the mix, but they had a loss on their record, and Georgia was undefeated heading into the SEC championship game. Alabama beats Georgia. So now
by 17
convincing
points.
Win. A very convincing win. Exactly. 41-24. And so now tonight we get a rematch just from a month ago. And so the question becomes, what will be different this time around? What will be the biggest adjustments? I don't know, Luke, if there's an adjustment that you're most curious to see, but what will be, what will make this outcome different? Will it just be Alabama beat Georgia a month ago? They'll do it again because they know how to beat Georgia. They kind of own Georgia, so to speak.
Well, there could be almost like a psychological hold there. It's like you've lost so many times, and there's certainly a spiritual aspect here we'll get into, but you lose so many times. It's, can we beat them? And then you add in, as a sports fan, how many times are you gonna really bet against Nick Saban? It's like, are you really gonna pick against a guy like Tom Brady? But it's hard. The thing I'm looking for is, Bryce Young for Alabama just totally diced apart Georgia's secondary, who really wasn't exposed before that game because the Georgia defensive line, their front seven is just, it's all time. It's ridiculous.
Top picks next in the draft this year.
Oh yeah, 100%. The best linebacker in the country. So if Bama's able to hold off their pass rush again, I don't know. It could be more of the same. So I'm interested to see the adjustments. That's right. As a sports nerd, it's going to be fun to see two great coaches make adjustments
that are very familiar with each other.
Very, very.
Which of course,
Kirby Smart, former assistant of Nick Saban. Talk about familiarity. Right. Incredible.
That's right. Yeah, not only having played against each other, but having been on the same sideline in the same locker room and all that. So, the big thing. So last game, this great Georgia defense had 0 sacks. And so, that's what they're one of the top teams, and they can't even get to the quarterback. So can Bryce Young continue that, getting away from the defense and that O-line protecting him. So that'll be one of the things to obviously keep an eye on. And so what will be different? Well, how will the outcome be different? And will Georgia be able to pull it out? Now, here at Unpacking It, we look at the spiritual parallels, the faith aspect of different stories during our Unpack This segment. And what I want to focus on is this idea that just because Georgia lost last time doesn't mean that they're going to lose again. Just because Alabama won the SEC championship, they won the last time they played in the national championship against Georgia, doesn't mean that they're going to win again. And so tonight's game, it starts over. It's 0-0, and the battle begins at 8 Eastern. And so for you and I in our own lives, every day when we wake up, we step into a spiritual battle. And it begins in many different ways. And really what it is a rematch. It's a rematch every single day to what we've faced previously. Now, we absolutely, learn lessons from the day before, the year before, throughout our journey and based on the wins and losses that we faced. But because of this spiritual battle, there's an evil force. Satan is looking to kill, steal, and destroy. That's the opponent that we're up against. And along with that, we have the opponent, which is our sinful nature, that is raging war against our spiritual nature. And so when we receive Christ, we are given the Holy Spirit. And so now we have this battle. We're living in this sinful world, and we have our sinful nature, yet we have the Spirit within us. And this spiritual battle is going on every day. And so it's a rematch. And so, maybe yesterday we fought well. We fought well against temptation. We fought against, the sinful opportunities, and we made the right choices, and we yielded to the Spirit instead of our sinful nature. But today is a new day. And so if yesterday we won against anger, today we got to win again. Just because we won yesterday doesn't mean we'll win again. Now we might learn how we won yesterday and we got to kind of do that again, or here's why I lost yesterday, so I don't want to do that again or take those steps again. So we absolutely do that. But just because we won doesn't mean we'll win today. And just because we lost yesterday doesn't mean that we have to lose today. So we can't let the pride of winning yesterday affect us today. We can't let the shame of losing yesterday affect us today either. It starts fresh. It starts fresh. It's a new battle today. And so in the Bible, in Galatians, it says, for the sinful nature has its desire, which is opposed to the Spirit. And the desires of the Spirit opposes the sinful nature. For these two, the sinful nature and the Spirit, are in direct opposition to each other, continually in conflict, so that you, as believers, do not always do whatever good things you want to do. And so we want to win. But there are days where we're in that battle and our sinful nature, it wins that day. And so we have to come before the Lord in confession and recognize the next day.
And
we
sometimes
start over,
more than days.
0-0.
Sometimes it's prolonged. Sometimes it's months.
Good
It's
point.
So you can continue, but I just want sometimes for those listening today, I know in my life, what we're talking about, sometimes it lasts for months. It's not just, I've had a couple bad days. It's easy to feel like you've been losing for a long time.
And that parallels well with the Georgia-Alabama rivalry, or I guess you call it a rivalry, but Alabama has dominated Georgia and has won, a significant amount of times against them. And so that absolutely lines up. And so, we go up against the same opponent, the same temptations, similar attacks, and our enemy knows how to take us down. And we're familiar with how he's going to scheme against us, based on our weaknesses. And so that's why we have to look to what it says in Ephesians, where it says, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. And so since this is a daily rematch, we have to remember that whether we won or lost yesterday, today is a new day. It's a new fight of faith. And so we have to acknowledge that there is a battle, because sometimes we just, we don't even think about it. But we have to realize there is a spiritual battle, and we have to prepare for this rematch as we step out, onto the field, so to speak. We step into our day that we're prepared. And so again, Ephesians continues, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this darkness, against evil spiritual forces in the heavens. For this reason, take up the full armor of God so that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and having prepared everything, to take your stand. So we stand, the belt of truth, the armor on our chest of righteousness, the feet, the gospel of peace. We take up the shield of faith. And then we take on the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And so that's the full armor that we were able to put on each day. And so, again, we learned from yesterday. We learned from those previous losses, those previous wins, but the battle starts over today. And ultimately, we rest in knowing this, that the victory, the eternal victory, is secure because of Jesus. And so although we have daily battles, the battle for our soul, when we surrender to him and place our hope and faith, and our salvation comes from him because of our faith, because of what Jesus did on the cross, we know that eternity, that has been won. That victory is secure in him. And so we continue to live, though, in this daily battle, in these daily rematches that we must be prepared for each day. And we don't do it in our own strength, but we do it based on the Lord giving us that strength each day to fight well, to fight the good fight of faith. So there you go. You can unpack that. Luke, anything else you wanted to add?
Gosh, I mean, what a dense topic. I mean, there's so many different directions you could go. But it's extremely relevant. Georgia and Bama. Again, the Georgia football team, it's so easy to relate to them because you think of your own life. I think of my life, there's been a handful of times in my life where I'm stuck. I'm stuck in a certain habit. I'm stuck in a certain sin, and I feel trapped. I can't get out. I feel like and that's a whole different discussion from feeling like you're losing in life if outward things are just happening to you, like losing a loved one. That's totally different than feeling stuck in a sin. You can't win. And the first thing I think of is we have to preach the gospel to ourselves daily, hourly. How often do we preach the gospel to ourselves? Because when we feel trapped, when we feel stuck, the first thing we want to do is rely on our own strength, is dig ourselves out. And when there's been times in my life where I've been stuck in a sin, I look back, why did I not find freedom sooner? It's because I was relying on my own strength. Even if I had great intentions. It's so easy to have good intentions and then try to do everything on your own, and you keep failing and you keep failing. But the thing I have to remind myself, I have to preach myself the gospel every day. I was saved by God's grace. Ultimately, my soul has been saved by God's grace. And it's also by God's grace that I'm able to walk faithfully with God. It's not God saves me and then by my own efforts, I become more like Christ. I've talked about this before. This is certainly true for me, and I'm sure a lot of people. It's this tendency to rely on our own strength to perform. It's up to us. No. You're saved by God's grace, and then you surrender, and you are transformed by God's grace. So you talk about being stuck and feeling like losing all the time. The first step that I've found freedom in is preaching the gospel to myself as a reminder on, okay, I need to surrender. I'm not going to find strength in myself. I find strength in God to be saved and to be transformed. So that's just something as a spiritual discipline, look at yourself in the mirror and preach the gospel to yourself, because Christians who have been Christians for years and years and years need to hear the gospel just as much as people who are not saved.
It's a wonderful reminder, and it's absolutely true, because the gospel changes us day in, day out, and that truth allows us to trust him more. And because that keeps us grounded, that keeps us having the right focus. And I'll just say this again, paralleling it to Alabama, just because they won the SEC championship, it's easy to think, all right, we got it. We'll take care of Georgia. Or fans might think they're probably more overly confident than players are. But you think, I'm good. And I think we can do that too, where maybe there were previous sins in our life that we struggled with, and they haven't been an issue for us in the last year, 10 years, or whatever. But if we don't continue to put on the armor of God, continue to be wise, continue to seek integrity, continue to live, more and more like Jesus, and we let things creep back in, or we take things lightly, we have to be careful, because we could fall again. And we always wonder, oh man, I thought that, that pastor, how did that happen? How did that happen? How do you fall? Well, you think oh, I got that taken care of. And we downplay certain things, and we got to take all that serious each day. Seriously, each day.
Yes.
We start fresh. Like you're saying, remind ourselves of the gospel, put on the armor of God, and recognize that we've got an opponent today, and we've got to take that opponent seriously. And
it's
and
true.
got,
It's the importance of starting your day grounded in truth. Just to piggyback off your saying, just to reiterate, if you identify with Alabama right now, you've had success against your opponent Georgia. If you've been finding freedom in certain sins, you're rejoicing in increased obedience and faithfulness. Great. Wake up and preach the gospel to yourself, because it's not by your strength you're doing that. It's by the strength of God. If you feel trapped in a sin, you feel like you've been losing, you can't get out, wake up, preach the gospel to yourself, and realize it's by God's strength you'll get out. It's both ends should result in the same thing, which is surrendering to the power of God. But both ends of the spectrum so easily put our focus on ourselves, which never ever works.
That's right. Amen. So we'll end it right there. We'll send out the devotional later today. If you haven't subscribed to the Unpack This devotional, check that out, unpackingit.com/subscribe. We send it out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Take sports stories related to the Bible, related to our own lives, designed to challenge, encourage, and inspire each other as we continue to follow Jesus and seek to become more like him. All right, let's take a look at the NFL playoff calendar schedule, and I'm excited. I can't wait for Saturday. It's going to be fun. So it starts off with Raiders, Bengals, which apparently is the least interesting game. That's the slot, that the TV slot that they give to the least interesting game. And then Monday Night Football, Cardinals, Rams has the chance, I think, for a pretty fun shootout. So I guess they played yesterday? Was that the Rams, Cardinals?
Rams,
that was
Niners.
Oh, it was
Cardinals,
Rams, Niners
Cardinals,
yesterday?
Seahawks.
Oh, they played last week. I felt like I just saw the Cardinals, Rams.
Yeah. So let me just rejoice here really quickly. Going into yesterday, it was very likely Cowboys number 4 seed, and it's going to be Cowboys, Cardinals, first round of the playoffs. Which, as a Cowboys fan, great. Cardinals, we've talked about here before, not too daunting. But if the Bucs would have also lost yesterday, Cowboys would have been the 2 seed. But the Bucs win. The Rams lose after being up 17-0. So the Rams lose, which was wild. And then the Cardinals lose to the Seahawks. So now the Cowboys get the Niners in the first round because the Cowboys are the 3 seed. So I don't know where I was going with that. I just want to say, as a Cowboys fan, yesterday was fantastic. Now, the Niners are certainly still terrifying. As any NFL playoff team, you can make an argument for, oh my gosh, they could beat us by 30 points. But I don't know. The chaos yesterday worked in Dallas's favor. So as a Cowboys fan, all you Cowboys fans out there, I'm cheering along with you. Yesterday was a good day.
There you go. That's right. So as I look at these matchups, every home team, except for the Bengals, like, quote unquote, has to win, is expected to win. There's more pressure on them to win. And you would expect that because they're the lower seeds, I never understand higher seeds or lower seeds. Think about that. It always happens during March Madness. I always catch myself. The lower seed or the higher seed? You want to be the lower seed. So technically the lower seed. But you're better, so you're higher up.
True.
Very confusing.
Very confusing.
A lot of pomp and circumstance around it. But like,
the jury's still out on what to say.
That's right. But the Bengals, like, to me, they're playing with house money getting into the playoffs, and they're still early in the Joe Burrow, tenure. And this is Jamar Chase's rookie season. So, good for them. Now, the Raiders are also playing with house money. So that's actually an intriguing game. So the fact that that's kind of the worst one on paper, very interesting. Both going in.
Very
Hey,
interesting.
I think that'll be a tight one. But like the Bills, they have to win. They have to beat the Patriots with a rookie quarterback. That has to happen. The Bucks, absolutely, they have to beat the Eagles in Nick Sirianni's first season. Your Cowboys better beat the 49ers. You better beat the Niners. And then the Chiefs, of course, have to beat the Steelers who snuck in. And then the Rams. The Rams go all in on this season. This is their year. They have to do it. Maybe next year too. I think some of these guys are under contract next year too, but they've mortgaged their future for the now. And so the Rams have to be all in. So going into the weekend, that's very intriguing to me because who's going to pull the upset? Who's going to be the story next Monday where, man, they blew it. I can't believe I can't believe the Bills let the Patriots win. That type of thing.
Do you like the amount of division opponents playing each other in the first round? Is that more exciting? Or would you rather see teams who are not in the same division? Because Bills Patriots round 3.
Yep.
Rams Cardinals round 3.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. There's another one.
Well, the Niners Cowboys feels like they're divisional teams just because of the history. So
the media is going to eat that up. So
yeah, that's a good
you're
one.
welcome, media.
Sunday at 4:30.
On behalf of the
Romo.
Cowboys.
That's Romo. Romo gets that game. You're welcome.
That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah,
but it's fascinating because it's a wild card. It's a wild card round. So automatically talk about a big game because the playoffs, and then you add in a division rival.
Ooh, it's nice.
Like that Cardinals Rams game, probably. I mean, for me, outside of the Cowboys Niners game, that's probably the game I'm most excited for, because I don't know. That's just the fact that that's the 4-5 game with how good those teams are is crazy. Again, we're finally here. Let's just take a second and have gratitude for, we've been talking about parity all year long. We've been talking about the playoffs are going to be incredible all year long. And we're here. The teams are seeded. Now we just get to sit back and enjoy. Are you kidding me? We're here.
Well, and I'm going back and forth. Do I want any fantasy ramifications during the playoffs or just enjoy the games? Because for 17 weeks, it was all about fantasy football for me. And now, so the week 18 was the first weekend where it's like, hey, I'm just sitting back enjoying the games. And it was kind of nice. So maybe I'll do that for the playoffs as well. But because we're sports fans here at Unpacking It, it's more important for rooting interests versus analyzing every matchup. So that always takes priority. True. So for me, here's where I come out as a fan, just an NFL fan. I am rooting. I think the best Super Bowl matchup would be the Bucks Patriots. Bill Belichick versus Tom Brady. I know everybody's tired of Tom Brady. Everybody's tired of Bill Belichick. But to see those two in the Super Bowl on opposite sidelines, I think that's most intriguing. Secondarily, I would enjoy the Steelers making a run and getting to the championship to take on the Packers, who they played years ago in the Super Bowl. So I would like to see that rematch. I don't want to see the Eagles do it. Those fans, all my family, my next door neighbor, all my buddies, you're lucky you guys got in. Like, to me, we were in the same boat in like week 7 or something, the Panthers and Eagles, and the Panthers season totally unravels and the Eagles sneak into the playoffs. It's just outrageous. So I can't root for them. The 49ers frustrated me too much this season with the way that they played. And I don't know. I just, the fact that they went for Trey Lance, they traded up for him and they don't really have a spot for him because they still have Garoppolo. They frustrate me. So, anyway, there you go. I'd like to see, I'm fine with the Titans making a run too. I still think they're underrated. I wrote about them this past week. I think we've been a little blind to how good they are. And now they get a healthy Derrick Henry. I'm okay with that for them to ride it out and make it to the Super Bowl. That'd be cool.
So here's what I'm rooting for. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. And this year,
thanks, John.
The road to the conference championship, it looks favorable because now being the 3 seed, you win, then you play the lowest remaining seed. You go to Tampa, who assuming likely will beat the Eagles. You go to Tampa, who the Cowboys barely lost to week 1 of the NFL season. you don't have to play. You wouldn't have to play the Packers until theoretically the conference championship. So love that for the Cowboys. If the Cowboys aren't in the Super Bowl, I think Chiefs-Packers would be fantastic, that quarterback duel. And outside of that,
How many State Farm commercials would we have to watch? That would be painful.
very true. We would need like Allstate, or shout out to my wife's company, who she works for, Travelers Insurance. Slide on in and just destroy State Farm. But the other thing I'm rooting for, which I think would perhaps be outside of the Cowboys winning, maybe the number one thing I'd root for, a Titans Super Bowl win. It would be perhaps the most remarkable Super Bowl win maybe ever in my lifetime. With
the Eagles winning,
they have missed. Now the Eagles Super Bowl is impressive, but as a Cowboys loyalist, I can't give them too much credit. So, but the amount of games that the Titans players have missed, how are they the number one seed? I mean, I'm with you. You talked about Vrabel's Coach of the Year. It's a no-brainer. He's Coach of the Year. It's not even close.
I don't hear enough love. I still don't hear enough love.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you miss games, Julio Jones. You miss I.J. Brown missed 5 games. They
didn't even have any receivers at one point already. I mean, they got Dante Foreman off the street.
You bring in Adrian Peterson. You miss game. They have multiple defensive starters that have missed games. You miss Derrick Henry. I mean, are you kidding me? And they're the 1 seed. You had a 5-game stretch where you beat the Rams, the Chiefs, the Colts. It's unbelievable. So a Titans Super Bowl, I mean, that would go down as a team that won the Super Bowl with the greatest adversity. It would be remarkable. So the sports fan in me, the underdog in me, that would be so cool.
But they're the number 1 seed with a bye.
Which is so crazy.
That's what's crazy about it.
That's part of the underdog story, is that they're the 1 seed. Are you kidding me?
I will say, I like the Rams. I like the Stafford story. Cooper Kupp was awesome this year. I root for him. I like Aaron Donald fine. He's cool. Von Miller, and Broncos beat my Panthers in the Super Bowl 50, so I don't like that. I don't like him as much. But I could see the Rams. I like the Rams, to me, could make a run, and I'd be okay with that. So we'll see. Well, it's going to be fun. I think there are enough reasons to root for different teams, even if your team isn't in it. So let me know who you're in, who you're behind, I should say. What team are you behind heading into the playoffs? Who do you think will win? Who do you want to win? What matchup would you like to see? Even next round, what are you rooting to see? Let me know. You can email me, Bryce at unpackingit.com, or leave your comments wherever you're watching, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. All right, so let's get to the Medishare moment of the week, and we've talked a lot of football today, but I want to get a little NBA in on this, because yesterday was a special moment in the NBA. After 2+ years, 2 major injuries, Klay Thompson returned to the floor for the Golden State Warriors. He made his first shot. It was a crazy circus shot, beautiful shot. Made his first shot. Ended up dunking with authority later in the game, and finished with 17 points in 20 minutes. He was 3 of 8 from the 3-point line. Even got a block. They were wondering, is he going to be able to play defense? Early on, I was watching early. I thought he was playing pretty good D too. So it's going to be fascinating to see, can he stay healthy? Can he stay out there? How long will it take him to get his legs back from a conditioning standpoint to be able to play more than 20 minutes? And will the Warriors make it back to the championship? So we'll have plenty of weeks and months to discuss the NBA. But the moment of the week was last night to see Klay Thompson. I guess it was in Golden State. The crowd was going nuts for him.
Yeah.
And to have him back on the floor as one of the greatest shooters of all time, right there with Steph Curry. One of the great kind of good guys in the NBA. People respect him. Good teammate. Has been that number 2 guy to Steph. And then when Durant was there, he had to move to number 3. But always, was willing to embrace that, at least from what we could gather as fans. And even Draymond wanting to be in the starting lineup was a little confusing to me, but that was cool too. So it was just a special scene. They even had our boy Brian Anderson on the call with Stan Van Gundy. It was like a special NBA TV night. So that was going on during the Raiders-Chargers game. So I'm sure a lot of people missed it, but I wanted to make sure we gave some love to Klay Thompson, and that is your Medishare moment of the week. And if you want more information about Medishare, text the word unpack to the number 201-201. Medishare is an innovative healthcare solution for Christians looking to save money without sacrificing on quality.
It's, gosh, as a sports fan, you want to watch Klay Thompson. Well, he's one of the more likable guys in the NBA. He's hilarious, great player. I mean, there's no controversy. You love to watch him play no matter who you're a fan of. And I just want to take a second to acknowledge the unlikelihood of him returning.
Oh my gosh.
Like, are you serious? A torn ACL. We'll start with the torn ACL, with how that derails players, especially a guy who's a two-way player, who has to move laterally, who constantly is running off screens. So that's a major injury. Immediately tears his Achilles once he comes back from the ACL, which you want to talk about even more so a career ender. Think of the fact that DeMarcus Cousins is still playing with his torn Achilles and torn quad, all that. A torn Achilles is a year-long recovery, and that's brutal to recover from. So we went back-to-back ACL, Achilles. The fact that he has the mental confidence to actually try to dunk in traffic and land awkwardly, that to overcome that mental hurdle, to trust your knee and to trust your Achilles, to be able to play, the fact that he's playing is remarkable. I don't want to take that for granted. Like, oh yeah, it's Klay Thompson, he'll come back. ACL and Achilles, no. Less than 1% of people come back from that. It's like, that's unbelievable. So I just want to appreciate, as a sports fan, it was greatness that he's playing again and that he's expected to be a key contributor with those injuries.
Great point. And I'm blown away by it. Excited to see him out there, and thankful that he's back, because I think back to, growing up as an NBA fan, 3 names come to mind where injuries really slowed them down and kind of their career trajectory changed: Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill, and Derrick Rose. And Rose is still playing, decent comeback now with the Knicks. And Grant Hill ended up having a nice, second half of his career. Was playing in Phoenix, but he never got back to that level that I loved. I mean, he was unbelievable as that point forward. He was carrying Detroit Pistons teams early in his career. Penny Hardaway was electric and ended up just kind of bouncing around and never regained that. Yeah. So
Derrick Rose was youngest MVP ever.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the path he was on, and then he had major knee injuries, and so that was a bummer. So with Klay Thompson, I mean, he already has accomplished a lot to win multiple championships, and he's right up there with all the 3-point records and all that kind of thing. But I'll be curious, kind of, what does his second half of his career now look like, and how does it compare to those 3 names that popped into my head? Yep. So, all right, so there you go. Let's bring back Henry, and he's been talking to everybody on the chat today. So looks like some good discussion going on during the show. So we appreciate that. And let's do a little tap drill. A couple of the other things we haven't gotten to. We haven't really talked about some of the head coaching changes, which I'm always intrigued by. And so, next week we'll have more of the answers as to who's kind of taken over some of these vacancies. So that'll be fun. But it looks like my Carolina Panthers are keeping Matt Rule unless something changes later this afternoon, which is interesting. So now the big decision will be who comes in as offensive coordinator for the Panthers, because Joe Brady got fired midway through the season, or a little after midway. But some of the names that popped up yesterday: Bill O'Brien and Jay Gruden. No, thank you. Please, no, thank you. Please, never again. Those guys should not be in key coaching positions ever. They never should have been. They never should be again. I know Bill O'Brien's doing fine in Alabama. That's what, what
big game tonight for him.
That's right. So anyway, I hope that is not the case for the Panthers. But Henry, take it away.
All right, Bryce. I'm actually going to call an audible. I'm going to stay right with your Carolina Panthers for a quick second. Did you hear about David Tepper saying that hiring Matt Rule was one of the biggest regrets he had. And now on Black Monday, he's still going to be coach. You fired your offensive coordinator. How do you feel about Matt Rule still being your Carolina head coach?
Wait, where did Tepper say that?
He
I
did.
didn't see that.
I'll find it for you. He did an interview. I'm not too sure why he said it, but he said that he regretted.
That's one of my biggest regrets, but we'll keep him anyway.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Well, my big thing is, all right, if you're going to commit to somebody for 6 years, then you got to give him 3 years. Like, I understand from his perspective, all right, we'll give him 3 years. But the fans have totally turned. In Charlotte, there's very few Matt Rule apologists or anybody willing to be patient. I mean, during the Hornets game this week, they were chanting, fire Matt Rule.
No
at an NBA
way.
game. Yeah.
No way.
Anytime your sports cross over, it's fun when you're at the, Falcons game cheering on the Braves or something like that.
Yeah.
But here in Charlotte, it's at a Hornets game. You're
Oh my gosh.
fire Matt Rule. Not a good sign. Not a good sign.
Wow.
So anyway.
Oh my goodness.
All right, staying with the NFL, and you mentioned the firings. In particular, the Jags, as we all well know, Urban Meyer thankfully got fired. The Vikings, Zimmer got fired. Matt Nagy got fired today. The Raiders, of course, John Gruden and the controversy that he had was fired. Vic Fangio of the Broncos was also let go. I believe it was Saturday he got let go after their game. And the one firing that everybody's got their head scratching over is the Miami Dolphins letting go of their head coach, Brian Flores. And now, after winning 8 of their last 9 games and finishing with a winning record the last 2 seasons, Brian Flores is let go. That's kind of a head scratcher. So Luke, Bryce, I'll let you go wherever you guys want to go. But my question to you is this. Which of these teams has the biggest storyline going into the offseason?
Well, I think to me that I don't like the Dolphins, but I think the way that Jalen Waddle played this year was remarkable. And so that was like the surprise with them. And then the fact that the Dolphins won all those games in a row and I thought finished the season, really well. Last week they got blown out by, I guess, Tennessee. But then they won yesterday against the Patriots. So it didn't make a lot of sense to move on from Flores. I thought he's done a nice job. There's still many players away. Remember, just a few years ago, they totally got rid of all their players. Remember, they traded everyone away.
Everyone.
And now 3 years later, they're at least competitive and in the mix. Now, they're still
back-to-back winning seasons. It hasn't happened in a long time.
But I was eating a little, I make delicious tuna salad. So I take a can of tuna, and then I add deliciousness to that can of tuna. And I was eating that today. I was
dainty lunches, your tuna salad, your hummus and carrots.
Some pita chip. I had some pita chips and tuna today with cornbread. How about that? But anyway, I'm eating that and I'm watching Colin Cowherd. And I have to give him some credit. He had a great take on Brian Flores. And he was saying this is the best thing to happen to Brian Flores. It's like this is great news for him because now he can get out of Miami where they're kind of stuck with Tua. Like this appears to be their guy. And Colin's not real high on him. I'm not really either. But Flores is a good coach. And it seems like around the league, that will be the understanding that, hey, this guy can coach. He's going to get a better opportunity if he waits for a good spot. Who knows? Maybe he goes to Chicago, the Raiders, some of these other openings, Denver. So this could end up being a big win for Flores, even though the initial response was, you got to be kidding me. Let's wait and see. So I'm going to be on that side of it too.
I actually love that take because why he was fired makes no sense. Like you back-to-back winning seasons, which again, that has not happened in a while in Miami. And you fire off a 7-game winning streak, you win 7 of your last 8. It's a no-brainer if you have a winning record to ride that momentum into the next season. It's a no-brainer. So he was fired after doing a good job. So I guess if there's a good opening for him, then I guess it worked in his favor because Miami is a very difficult spot to win. I want to comment on Vic Fangio. I think it's unfair. I don't think it was necessarily the right call to fire him. 3 years, He had a top 3 defense this year. Like, how is he supposed to win with no quarterback? I was reading an article today saying that there was analysis and numbers ran on if he had a league average quarterback or if he had a quarterback as good as the quarterbacks in his division or around their caliber, and they're a playoff team. How can you judge him by he has no one else to play a majority of the games besides Drew Lock? He has a top 3 defense, and he has Drew Lock. All of you guys have given him Drew Lock and Bridgewater, but more of the games have been played by Drew Lock. Like Drew Lock, he's probably proven to be a backup.
Yes, without a doubt.
But Vic Fangio has crafted a top 3 defense. I don't know. I don't think he's being judged fairly because he hasn't had a quarterback to actually. I don't know. I just don't think there's enough to judge him as not doing a good job, given his success on the defensive side of the ball and given he doesn't have the offensive roster to be a playoff team. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think there are certain guys that stick around in the NFL for a long time that are great coordinators, and they need to stay in their lane. And they're just going to, like, that's what they're ultimately going to be. And even if they get a chance to be a head coach for a couple years, like, to me, you're going to fall back. So Fangio is going to be a top defensive coordinator next year. Like, he'll get a great job.
Yeah, no doubt.
Make as much money as anybody. And
it's like Dan Quinn for the Cowboys. Gets fired from the Falcons. And I mean, still did a really good job there, but
he might be a head coach again. To me, yes. Quinn might be a head coach. Like that might be, he's taking a team to a Super Bowl, but somebody like Fangio, somebody like Wade Phillips wasn't a head coach. He was the defensive coordinator.
Yeah. What'll be interesting is Josh McDaniels. Which will be interesting is Josh McDaniels. What's going to happen with him? Because great coordinator. The Denver experiment, not good. He was only 32 years old. So I think he can still be a great head coach. But I just have to get this out there. There was an article I read saying Josh McDaniels, one of the likely candidates for the Houston job. Are you serious? Oh, why on earth? If McDaniels turned down the Colts job, he's not going to Houston.
Well, why would he do that? Front office guys. That's all being run by New England guys.
Oh, I just don't.
Their GM, they've got multiple guys there.
Because you got to think, realistically, he'll be back to being a coordinator after 3 seasons. If you go to Houston, you're not going to win there.
To me, if you're Josh McDaniels, you've waited this long, you've got to be the heir apparent. Like you've got to take over for Belichick. That's your journey at this point. He'll still be pretty young, you would think. I mean, I don't even know. Is he 50 yet?
He's like 45.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Well, the GM that you're referring to, Bryce, is Caserio, the Houston GM, who was the longtime GM for the Patriots. And a lot of the names that you guys are talking about are going to be in the coaching carousel, as they say. Dan Quinn is going to be one. Don't be surprised if Vic Fangio might get a look at somebody, though, because like you said, he was a great defensive coordinator. And because of the fact that the NFL is an offensive league, it's a quarterback-driven league, now the cycle is going to be kind of like, okay, where can we find a head coach that could kind of stem the tide towards that? And that's where Fangio and even Dan Quinn, like you were saying, Luke, Dan Quinn might get a look because he literally turned around the Dallas Cowboys defense to the point where you got Micah Parsons, who's obviously going to be the defensive rookie of the year, but it's going to be in the running for defensive player of the year, period, were it not for TJ Watt tying the sack record.
True.
So
Henry's really on this crusade for Micah Parsons.
I am, and as a Giants fan, it kind of pains me to even say that.
We're having some division love here, some inter-division love here.
Back-to-back weeks, Henry can't get enough of Micah Parsons.
Yeah, because they probably should have taken him over Kadarius Toney, but we'll save that for another day. Staying with the topic of head coaches, though, what kind of head coach do you guys like in particular? Do you like the guy who has the X's and O's, and if he needs to, he can run the offense? If he needs to, he can run the defense? Or do you like the CEO types? like the Bill Belichick type, the Bill Parcells type, the Mike Tomlin type that runs the team, has his guys, runs the team, but he ultimately makes the final decision.
To me, what is so underrated in the coaching discussion, it's all about the staff. Who is a great leader of coaches? That's the difference. Because I'm watching this in Carolina. The Panthers staff just isn't good enough. I watched John Fox's team when he went to the Super Bowl. He had a tremendous staff of assistant coaches. Jack Del Rio was his defensive coordinator. A lot of guys were here. And so even Ron Rivera, when he had Sean McDermott, like, you need to have a strong staff. So you need to be a strong personality that you're clearly the leader, but you empower your coordinators, and it almost, they're the ones that allow you to almost take the credit and shine, but they're the ones that then go get head coaching jobs. And if I'm going to hire a new guy, I want somebody that has been underneath that type of guy too, that has been around a winning program or a winning franchise and understands what it takes. So I like more of the CEO type guy where is he an offensive guy? Is he a defensive guy? Oh, I don't know. He's just a great leader. He's a great coach and ultimately a leader of players too. But if you're a leader of coaches, I think that makes a bigger difference. And so I'm more along the lines of Tomlin, John Harbaugh. Well, Jim or John Harbaugh, both Harbaugh guys. Of course, Belichick. I mean,
so that's what the Cowboys have. McCarthy, Dan Quinn has complete autonomy over the defense, and then an emerging offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. So I love the CEO type just because, again, I mean, the difficult thing is turnover. You have to be able to be a good hirer. You have to be able to hire because your coaches are going to leave, especially at the college level. Nick Saban, he's got assistants leaving every year, brings them in, and then
builds great ones,
and then builds them up. Or he'll bring in a former head coach, Bill O'Brien. Yeah, come run my offense. That's right. So
Kiffin.
My only question here is the head coaches that call the defensive plays or the offensive plays. What does that coordinator even do?
I know.
What is their purpose? Like I think of like at A&M, Jimbo Fisher. He calls the plays. I don't even know the offensive coordinator's name. They're not a coordinator. They're offense assistant. They're an offensive analyst. If you're not calling the plays, can you be a coordinator? That's always perplexed me.
I don't
know how that works.
Offensive assistant. The lead offensive assistant. I'll call the plays. You just go up there in the booth and watch what we're doing. But the perfect example of a coaching tree that you guys are talking about, and I always refer this to people, is Bill Parcells. Because if you take a look, of course, you have Belichick, head coach, Super Bowl winning quarterback. Tom Coughlin, head coach, Super Bowl winning quarterback. Sean Payton was the quarterback's coach, Super Bowl winning quarterback. So all of those guys are from the Bill Parcells tree. And then you have Andy Reid and then his tree. And now you've got Eric Bieniemy, who's has to have some type of head coaching.
Gosh, got to.
He's got to have some type of head coaching opportunity somewhere. There are 6 teams that are out there. You can't tell me that Eric Bieniemy, who runs the #1 offense in the NFL for the last 2 to 3 years, can't get a head coaching job. Me personally, I think that the perfect head coaching job for Eric Bieniemy would be in Chicago. He would be the perfect person to groom the quarterback. I can't Justin Fields. There you go. He'd be the perfect guy to groom Justin Fields with his skill set and get some offensive players around him. Eric Bieniemy would be perfect in Chicago. I
think a fair question though is maybe Eric Bieniemy is better suited as a coordinator. Just like I'm saying, Vic Fangio. Like I think Vic Fangio and those names I mentioned, Monty Kiffin. Like I think some guys are just better coordinators that to take on that CEO type role, that may not be what their personality, their skill set is. And I think that's okay. I don't think every great coordinator has to be a head coach. I think it's great to have good #2 guys that, man, he's just an awesome offensive coordinator, he's an awesome defensive coordinator. And you attach yourselves to great head coaches and you'll win a bunch. And so, I'm curious to see, Dabo Swinney had some great coordinators. Now those guys are going to be head coaches on the college level. So how will they do?
I wonder if coordinators get pressured in to feeling like they need to go for a head coaching job.
Yeah,
Because
they
a guy
do.
like Brent Venables, great assistant at the college level. We'll see if he does well at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
He's probably working against the tide here, but I don't know. Like if you're a great assistant, that you can just be a great assistant. But I wonder how much pressure there is. Okay, you know what? You need to go for this job. You need to be a head coach. I'm willing to bet there's a handful of these guys that really deep down don't want that. They want to just be a coordinator and focus on their system, and that's it.
And like Matt Nagy, he'll probably go back to being an offensive coordinator, and he'll never be a head coach again. And Mike Zimmer, same kind of thing. He's a little bit older now too, but I'm not sure that Mike Zimmer was ever, even though he had I guess he had a 9-year run, but was he really a great head coach? No, he's probably just a better coordinator. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. There's nothing. To be a head coach is a whole nother ask. To be able to be a leader, to be the head honcho, to set strategy, to set vision, to oversee, that's a completely different skill set than implementing an offense or a defense.
Absolutely.
So you guys are okay with Will Riker being the guy next to Jean-Luc Picard then? That's kind of Star Trek. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, you lost me on that one.
Star Trek reference.
Yikes, that's the first. That's the first on unpacking it.
One last tap. One last tap here we got.
Clear.
I don't know if you guys, we all were watching NFL this past weekend. We love Saturday NFL. But here's my two questions. One, why are we calling Saturday NFL Monday Night Football?
Yes.
And secondly, as much as I love Chris Fowler, as much as I love Kirk Herbstreit, I love what they do. If you're calling it Monday Night Football for the sake of this conversation, why aren't the Monday Night Football guys calling the Monday Night Football game? And why is it Monday night on a Saturday?
So I forgot about this. I should have had it from I'm convinced. I'm convinced that it made me so upset. Like, are you kidding me? It's a day of the week. Is the day of the week sponsored? Can we not call it Saturday Night Football? I was watching it, and my first reaction was, man, they're really trying to promo Monday Night Football. That's interesting. It's on the little banner with the score. It says Monday Night Football, and then in the commercials, it's Monday Night Football. I'm thinking, wow, they're really trying to get more viewers. And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what intern forgot to change it to Saturday Night Football? It still says Monday Night Football. And then I came to reality thinking, no, this is on purpose. And it is absolutely outlandish. It makes no sense to me. It is Saturday night. We're watching the NFL. In no world can you call it Monday Night Football. They're literally saying, welcome to Monday Night Football on Saturday night. It makes no, what are we doing here? I was, the purist in me was so offended by it.
You guys are funny. I don't have a problem with it. To me, it's a brand. It's a brand. It's Monday Night Football. It's the brand. You get a little booger on your finger, or a bigger booger on your screen. You've got booger McFarland. Right? You got to have Schefter. You got to have Brian Greasy and Levy and all these other guys. It's Monday Night Football. Susie Colbert. That's what you got.
I can't stand it. I can't do it. I cannot do it.
It's the one time a year. I didn't have a problem with it. Here's what I have a problem with. So I think that Chris Fowler is an excellent play-by-play guy. So he does college football. We'll hear him on the call tonight.
And he does tennis too. He's across the board. He's very good.
Too much tennis, but Fowler's really good, and he has a big game voice. When you hear Fowler's voice, you're like, man, this is a big deal. That's what you pay for with these big time play-by-play guys. You want the feel of a big game. And Jim Nantz, Joe Buck, Al Michaels, they all have it.
Yeah.
But I don't like that he's calling a Monday Night Football Saturday night game, Denver, Kansas City, a game that doesn't matter at 4:30. When I'm taking down my Christmas tree. But the thing is, they have the college championship game. Yeah, it was a week late. A little late. I finally got to it. Guys, tonight is the college football championship. And Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, they weren't even there. It's in Indy. They weren't even there on Saturday. They were in Denver preparing for a Broncos-Chiefs game that really didn't mean that much. I guess the Chiefs were fighting for a playoff, for a seeding. But to me, that's the disconnect. I want those two guys focused on tonight's game That was an NFL game. Like,
yes.
it's not. So I don't think that's because they're not good enough. They are good enough. But to try to do a one-off in the middle of championship weekend when all focus should be on that, are you kidding me? That to me is as a broadcasting nerd.
Yes,
that is upsetting.
So that's a great point, and I think the point you're also trying to make is broadcasting takes so much prep. Get their focus on the college football championship. Get them in player meetings. Get them in coaches meetings. Have them sit down and talk and be able to call a game of that magnitude. Like if I was watching the Chiefs Broncos game, Kirk Herbstreit is naming players and their tendencies. The amount of prep he probably had to do for that after being a college football guy all season, tremendous amount of time. And they're about to call the biggest college football the game of the season. What are we doing? Why would you distract him with that? Of course they're good enough to call an NFL game, but I don't think people realize the amount. It's a full-time job sometimes for these games, the prep work. It's unbelievable.
I know. I just think that was a mistake from that standpoint. And once I heard Kirk Herbstreit call him Tyreek Hill, I was like, all right, we've got an issue here.
Yeah.
We're talking one of the top receivers in the league. Tyreek. Listen, I don't know the Raiders head coach's name, but I'm not the only one. Colin Cowherd doesn't either, I don't think.
Yeah. But Tyreek.
Tyreek, it just you show up on Friday, you're trying to call a game. That's right. Tough. Yeah. Tyreek Hill. it's Tyreek. Kurt. Yeah. We should call him Kurt Herbstreit.
Yeah.
Hey, way to go, Kurt Herbstreit. Way to go on the NFL call.
Oh, man. We'll call him Kirk Herbstreit. A little soft H. Kirk Herbstreit.
I still have a little bitterness toward Kurt after he called App State a cupcake team right before we beat Michigan.
Yeah. So, well, he's an Ohio State homer anyway, so if you get him on an Ohio State call, maybe turn that on mute.
All right, boys. Yeah. Let's end Tap Drill on this. We keep saying we don't know what the Raiders interim coach's name is. Let's give him his props. The interim head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders is Rich Bisaccia. That's his name.
Is that how you say it?
Rich Bisaccia.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. We'll give it to you, Henry. I'll trust you. No, he's
trust me. Trust me. They said it like 5,000 times on the road, at least enough to be like, okay, he's still the head coach. We keep forgetting the fact that he is the head coach.
I know. I think we all just once Gruden left, I was like, oh, well, the Raiders season's over. So I just wrote them off. Like I didn't even pay any attention to them, other than Hunter Renfrow lighting it up this year. But he actually dropped a surprising one yesterday. But anyway, all right. Well, we could go all day. We'll stop there. But good stuff. Man, what a fun weekend it was, and tonight's game should be entertaining. Do you guys have a preference on who you would like to win? I think you can make a case either way. Either team can win tonight. Both teams are great. Do you want one team to win?
Saban already has the most championships ever. So I want Kirby Smart. I want to see Kirby Smart finally do it. The program he has developed at Georgia is fantastic. So I would love to see Georgia get it done.
Yeah, I want to see Georgia get it done simply because Atlanta needs a win besides the Braves. It's almost as if the Braves don't count. And they need something to get the stench, because they're still dealing with the stench of 28-3.
True.
Well, but there are fans in Atlanta, but it's not a full Athens. Actually, Athens is an awesome town. I've been there. I went to a Georgia game a couple years ago. Great college town. It's not particularly close to Atlanta, but I understand what you're saying. It's a similar fan base, just like here in Charlotte. We got a lot of Tar Heel fans all over the place.
Exactly.
And a lot of Braves fans.
I get that. Yeah, a lot of Braves fans here as well. But I think I've got to go with Alabama because it just doesn't move the needle. And because now if Georgia wins, then we got to hear from Georgia fans. Now all of a sudden we have a whole new fan base that is going that's cocky and feeling good about themselves. Whereas with Alabama, we've neutralized them. Like they're tired of winning, really, when you think about it. Like you don't even hear about their fans. Like their fans are nuts, but they don't bother me that much. I don't know.
That's actually a fascinating point. Is they're maybe the quietest fans of a winning team. You don't ever hear from them. First of all, they don't even show up to games anymore. That's not the SEC championship. Saban has called out their fans.
Frustrated with them.
The first the non-conference games don't even show up anymore. So
yeah, it is. They are an interesting fan base because they're so used to winning. It's championship or bust, and they win. Feels like every year. So
what an interesting life to be a fan. Championship or bust every year.
Yeah,
unreal.
The 90s for the Braves, and you happen to mention the Atlanta Braves, the 90s for the Atlanta Braves, when they were winning all of those National League pennants, were the same way. It got to a point where nobody showed up for the Atlanta Braves teams. They were one of the best teams in baseball, but nobody showed up for their games unless it was like the NLCS. And then they were like, okay, call me when they get to the championship game, and that's it. After they won that one World Series, they didn't even show up in the regular season. So it's kind of similar that way.
Just to confirm, so Athens and Atlanta, about hour and 27 minutes apart. So it's, Henry, a fair take. I don't think it's not, they're not the same fan base, but there is an overlap. There's no question. Because Georgia Tech is in Atlanta, and so is Georgia State. That's in Atlanta too. So anyway, Athens is outside of, so we had a little geography lesson today.
Geography lesson here on Unpacking It.
Didn't expect to get a Georgia State shout out, which actually a guy in my community group at church went to Georgia State. So he'll be pleased with that shout out.
Okay. Just remind him that App State, we like to beat Georgia State. It's always fun. They're in our conference. All right, guys, enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back next Monday to talk about the wild card weekend and preview. Actually, we'll have a Monday night game next week with the Rams and the Cardinals. So that'll be fun. But thanks to everybody listening, jumping on the chat today. Appreciate your responses on there. You can shoot me an email, bryce@unpackingit.com. Any thoughts throughout the week, let us know. The devotional will go out later today. If you haven't subscribed to Unpack This, you can do so on unpackingit.com. Today, we talked about the rematch. The rematch. We face it every day. The daily spiritual battles that we're in. Are we putting on our spiritual armor and clinging to the salvation we have in Jesus and trusting in his strength and power and trusting in the word of God to allow us to handle the battles that we face each day. And in many ways, starts over each day. It's a new day. So that's the focus and the takeaway for today's show. Thanks to Luke and Henry and Chris, our producer. We will talk to you next week. I'm Bryce. I am a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening to the Unpacking It podcast presented by Medishare.